Alrighty, so I recently got a request to do a past life reading, so that's what I'm going to do today. We're going to have 3 piles, and they're going to represent you in a past life. It might shed light on anything you're going through in this life, any kind of karma you may be cleansing, and why. So we're going to use the Field Tarot. We're going to use the Uncover Your Past Lives Oracle, this time to actually look at past lives. And we're going to use the Trump Inventions cards, and I don't know why, I just felt called to it. If you hear that crunching, that's my kitten. She's having her lunch. Or brunch, I guess. Okay, so Group 1. Ooh. What kind of energy would you be drawn to if this were your pile? The Prince of Cups or the Knight of Cups? Group 2. The Prince of Discs or the Knight of Pentacles? Oh. And group 3. The 7 of Cups. Okay, so group 1. The Prince of Cups, Introspection. Group 2, the Prince of Discs or the Knight of Pentacles, with Reliability. And Group 3, the 7 of Cups, Choices. So we'll begin with Group 1. Whoop. Hold on. Just a minute, kittens. We're live. Can't have this, okay? Group 1, who were you? Kitten. Okay, so Group 1, the Knight of Cups, or the Prince of Cups, Introspection. Who were you in a past life? Industry. Local artisan, international merchant, manufacturer, money handler. What were your experiences? What do we need to draw from this that would shed light on your current life? What sticks out here? Young female, learning about her self-identity. Her trauma is imprisonment and unrequited love. We've got astrolabes, which helped people navigate by the stars. Muslim astrolabe makers like Miriam al-Astrolabiya drew on ancient Greek ideas. Actually, I'll put that over here. Okay, so in your past life, in one of your past lives, maybe your most recent one, you were a young girl who fell in love with a traveler, an international merchant, or somebody who had a very promising future and even promised you a very promising future with them. You were somebody who fell in love at a very young age. You had a very deep, deep heart and soul. You kept that love in your heart for a very long time throughout your own journey, going a very long period without hearing from this prince or knight of cups or this international merchant. So a big wound that you experienced was not only unrequited love or something that felt like a love that could never be actualized in reality, but also a sense of imprisonment. You lived during an era where women didn't have the freedom to just leave their house and wander off on their own. They were controlled. They were controlled by the patriarch. They were controlled by society. You yourself didn't have freedom to explore your dreams, your creativity, your own life. The way that you navigated was through your dreams. This person that you loved, this merchant, they likely did love you back, but love and human connection wasn't so easily established during the era that you both lived. You may have been star-crossed lovers. This person may have loved you very much, but there wasn't much he himself could do. He had to travel for work. He had other commitments. And you lived oceans apart. You may have only even met or seen each other once. But it was like a really powerful form of love that you both held for each other. But there wasn't much either of you could do about it except dream. But that was enough, kind of enough for both of you in a way. Especially you built an entire life in those dreams. And you very much were imprisoned, maybe like stuck in your home, couldn't leave. Your entire identity, therefore, was based on the prospect of this dream coming true. You actually learned a lot about yourself and actually matured and developed a lot just by experiencing the journey of this love in your fantasy. In your fantasy world. You transported yourself to a fantasy world. And it wasn't all that fake, because you discovered a lot about yourself and how it is you have the potential to love and what it feels like to be free. You were able to feel those things in fantasy, and they were lessons enough. It was growth enough, as much as could be had for a woman like you during that era. Ooh. Anything else here? Death. The world beyond the veil. You learned how to connect, maybe keep in contact with this person or keep tabs on them somehow, and vice versa. Using spirit. Transporting yourselves next to one another somehow, despite the distance. You guys did have a really powerful and real love. It just didn't take place in 3D reality, but you both were very connected to the spirit realm, your higher selves. There was a whole relationship that took place in the spirit realm that you both experienced, but nothing in 3D reality. That's a lot. Yeah, I was going to say... You both died at a very young age. You died as a young female. He died as a young merchant. You guys met once, and it was enough to create this entire journey with each other in the spirit realm. But you both died very young. It seems like one of you passed away, and the other of you died of heartbreak or despair just by feeling it, because you guys would meet up in the astral world. So after some point, after one of you actually did pass away, the other felt that, and the other died of heartbreak. In this way, both of you, especially you, were able to preserve your innocence, your purity. You were chaste your entire life. You were loyal. Even in spirit, in a world, in a life like that, you were loyal and pure and devoted. There was balance. It was actually a really beautiful relationship, ironically. You guys experienced getting married in fantasy, but it was a real marriage. You both were imprisoned and trapped by the confines of the 3D reality and the oceans between you two. You guys lived out a whole lifetime's worth of love and a relationship in your hearts and your minds in the spirit realm together directly, and you both were consciously aware you were doing this. Man. So something you might experience in this life, or have been experiencing a lot in this life, is this feeling of, well, first of all, being trapped or imprisoned by the confines of your 3D reality. You might have been somebody who from a very young age were ready to set sail and leave home, but you had to wait until, you grew up and you were allowed the freedom to do so, and then you were able to acquire the means and the resources to do so. Your life may have felt like a waiting game, and you have been trapped in the home you were born in, or the places that you were just tied to because of association, before you were able to develop your own independence and set sail and break free and start your own life. This might be like a trauma from your past life that you are reliving in a new form in this life. Knowing where you want to go, knowing what you love, being born knowing so, but not being able to go after it because of things in the 3D that are chains, chaining you, imprisoning you. If you feel this in this life, it makes sense. It's left over from your last life. And in your last life, you did kind of find a way to break free. You used spirit. You entered the spirit realm that gave you freedom. That's why in this life, that's not going to cut it and good. Because in this life, you are going to experience what it's like to feel free and move forward and set sail toward what you love and accomplish that goal in the 3D. Something you didn't get to do in your last life, you will do in this life. You may have equally experienced something like unrequited love. You may have had partners or fallen in love with people who you could feel that they loved you too, but in the 3D, their 3D versions wouldn't show it, and you wouldn't be able to tell just by looking at them and their interactions. It may have felt like torture for you. Something you may have experienced a lot in this life is falling in love with somebody and feeling that that love is mutual and that they feel it too, but they don't show it, and the 3D reality was not adequate proof of that, and that was really heartbreaking and made you feel kind of like, am I crazy? Am I delusional? Or does this person just not know how to express their heart and soul and love? The answer is, yeah, no, you weren't delusional. You have the ability since your last life to be able to understand and communicate and interact with the people that you love in a spiritual way, in the spirit realm, with their higher selves, with their 5D. So if you felt the love from these people, you were right. And if you didn't receive it in a way that was like tangible proof from them in 3D communication and interaction, it's because they themselves had a lot of fears, or they themselves didn't know how to communicate that to you. So these are things that you may have been experiencing in this life, and they are left over from your last life, but they are things that you experienced in your last life, especially the tragedies that will be and are being corrected in this life. It's a karmic cleansing. Every life after every lifetime we live is like a karmic cleansing of our past life. This is positive justice. This is karmic justice for you in this life. To be able to maintain this pure heart love in a way that is tangible in reality. To share equal give and take with somebody in this life that you love, without having to resort to the 5D versions of yourselves just to experience life and love together. You will get to have that in this life because you didn't get to have it in your last life, but in your last life you proved yourself so worthy by the way you were able to love and hold on to that love. Man, that's beautiful. Okay. Oh, so now I'm going to move on to group 2. All in princes and knights everywhere again. Woof, woof, woof. Okay, so group 2, you chose the Prince or the Knight of Pentacles with the word reliability associated. Who were you in a past life? Who were you? Hey, wow. Okay, we have obsession, obsessive love, jealousy, obsessive lover or other. Ooh. And what kind of lessons were you forced to learn, or what stuck from those experiences? Oh, that's a lot. That's also a lot. We'll take this one. Psychic wounding was your trauma. The location was the stars? The love you experienced was true love. The lesson you learned was self-love. You lived a long life. You died of old age. Oh, that's very interesting. Like, wild. Okay. Knight of Pentacles. Surgical tools. 1,000 years ago, a surgeon called Al-Zarawi, I said that correctly, Zarawi, wrote a book describing 200 medical instruments. Several of today's medical tools are remarkably similar. Oh, this one, very heavy. Now, this, like, regardless of all of this love, obsessive love wording, that's not the energy that I'm getting at all. You were somebody who was very obsessive, but it wasn't love. You had an obsession for, like, you were on a quest, or like you had a purpose, and you were on a quest, and you were there to fight wars. Like, you had a strong obsession with either justice or finding answers or making things right. You had an obsession with finding a way to fix and to heal. You did a lot of different things in your life. You accomplished a lot. You were a revolutionary and a renegade. You had a way of zeroing in on something and fighting to the death for that thing. And that's not even how you died. Like, your valor and your fighting spirit, like, you were a literal warrior. The way that you died was of old age. And you had all the respect of the people around you. You always did. You may have had a lot of obsessive lovers and people who were really obsessed over your energy. But you yourself were not an obsessive lover. You were an obsessive warrior and revolutionary. That's why all of this took place in the stars. Oops. And your trauma is a psychic wounding. Your faith was celestial. Your love, your heart was true. You had so much love for yourself, and that was a lesson that you had to learn in a way, because you were insanely selfless. It's almost like you didn't even have any love or any care or any regard for your own self. You were constantly being filled with messages from perhaps the stars, spirit. You were like really tapped in, and you would take orders from spirit. You were like a warrior for spirit. They would tell you where there was a war, what that required peace, and you would get the fuck up and go and fight that war and establish peace. They would give you a message that in some other corner of the world there was a lot of famine, disease, illness. You would pack the fuck up and go and create an army of people, or wrangle an army of doctors or medical practitioners of the time, and do your work out there, helping, fixing, healing. You had an obsession with other people and this world. It's like you didn't even identify as a human being. You knew that your purpose there, and you heard it in your head all the time, and it was like directions given to you from the stars. That your purpose there was not for yourself. Your purpose there was to be there for everyone else. You were obsessed over fixing the world communities, and you were given a direct channel as to where to go and how to do it and who to find to make a member of your team for each mission. You were a warrior, and a great thing that you had to learn was self-love. You had to spend like a later part of your life, and that's why you died of old age. Like, you had a lot of positive karma from that life alone, never even mind the life before that. You raked up so much like positive karma, or did such an intense karmic cleansing during the first part of that life, that you were able to experience the positive waves of karma in the second part of that life. You lived an incredibly long life, and it was as though they were like two lives in one. The first half of that life, you were all over the place, saving the world in your own way. Zero regard for yourself, always on a mission for others. And in the second phase of that life, you had to learn how to show that kind of love and care to yourself. Ground yourself, remove yourself from the stars, know that your job is done and that you can focus on yourself, and you did, but it was a difficult lesson to learn for some reason. In a lot of ways, because you were born so gifted and with that channel to spirit, it did create a huge psychic wounding, because it unconsciously, you were born knowing that you didn't matter, that you didn't exist, that you were here to correct something in the system, that every other person on this planet was more important than you. That's what you were here for. You were just a tool. You were just a tool for fixing. It didn't necessarily bother you on a conscious level, but unconsciously it was a major psychic wounding. Because you didn't have an identity, you didn't believe that you mattered at all, which is why it was so easy for you to sacrifice yourself and your literal physical body and life for other people and other causes. It was a major part of your psychic wounding, and you didn't even realize it until the second part of your life, where you were forced, and even spirit cut you off so you couldn't hear them anymore. Because they wanted you to start learning that, no, you're not just a tool. You did what you needed to do, but no, you were never just a tool. You are like a really important human being who deserves love, who deserves to have people fight for them for a change. This was who you were in a past life. Ooh, that's so intense. Okay, anything else? The Three of Cups, friendship. Looks a little witchy. Like a little witch party. The Five of Cups, destitution. It's like you didn't experience friendships. You didn't experience what it was like to have people root for you or fight for you. You didn't have any money, and you did not prosper at all from the work that you did. You were barely even recognized, not until way later, like on your deathbed is when like many people probably visited you and you had become a legend by then. But while you were fighting these wars and doing all this, you didn't get any recognition, you didn't get any payment, nobody knew your name. You didn't have any friendships, you didn't stay stable in any one location for very long enough to enjoy friendships. Your only friends were like, the people of the places you visited that you helped. The more mystical people of the culture who knew, like who could just sense you and see your energetic signature. Like the witchy people. Or like the prophets, or the very few people who had the eyes to see, they could see you. But even it was all short-lived because you were constantly traveling. You didn't have friendships. You didn't have celebration in your honor during these times. I'll say 9 of Wands with resilience. Yeah. And that's like a major understatement. Yep. The 4 of Wands with celebration. Yeah, the end of your life. And then strength. Yep, your strength was, you were a legend way later on. Your strength was absolutely celebrated, and you finally were able to establish a home at the very last phase of your life, your old age. You were just beginning to learn. You didn't fully, but you were just beginning to embark upon the lesson of self-love and learning to take care of yourself and stay in a place that is like a home base for once. After some time, like word got around or something, everything kind of shifted in the last maybe decade of your life. And people knew you and recognized you for your strength. You were celebrated, and you were a legendary individual in the last 5 or 10 years of your life. So you didn't get to fully like sit in the feeling of self-love. That's not what your life was about, but you were like you started to see what it was like and feel what it was like in that last decade. Because you finally got peace to stay at home and live in a stable place, and especially to be recognized by the people around you for what it is you had done your whole life. This is who you were. Man, that's so powerful. Oh, love. So, something you might be experiencing in this life, or a feeling that you've known very well. Sorry. Okay. Something that you may have experienced or come to know very well in this life is this energy like that I matter. Like you were born knowing that you matter and that you deserve love. Like you may have been born with this because it was like trailing off the end of your last life. Like it was one lesson that you took with you that you should never forget, you know? So I wonder if you have ever felt shame for being like super entitled, for feeling like you deserve things, like you deserve your own home, you deserve your own money, you deserve love, you deserve happiness, like for being able to say I desire and I want and I deserve. You may have felt or been forced to feel a lot of shame as though you're super entitled. That might be like a wounding that you experience, but you relentlessly still all your life like found ways to remind yourself and the people around you that I matter and I'm valuable. And it's not an entitlement. Every human deserves to say this and say the same. So this might be like the energy that you've carried in this life because it was part of your psychic wounding in your last life, and you weren't able to embark upon like learning that self-love matters and that you deserve it. So you may have been born with that, and then you may have also faced a lot of people trying to make you feel bad about it, or labeling you as being entitled or a narcissist or selfish or spoiled, when that's not been the case at all. You may have been somebody who is almost like has a very self-sacrificial energy. In this life, it may be like incredibly hard for you, and it's like a trauma point to see other people suffer. Like you can't help but become the hero even though you don't mean to. There is like this hero that rises within you when you see any kind of injustice or any kind of a human being struggling or any kind of fault in the system. Like there is a hero that comes bursting through, and it's like you will stop at nothing, and sometimes you will have like no regard for your own safety just to protect other people. This might be like something that it is you were born with, that's innate in you. And other people's sadness and pain and trauma, it is the biggest trauma for you, bigger than your own in this life. That's like your trauma point, is for other people. And then the feeling of being a failure for not being able to fix everything and everyone in the world. Carrying the world on your shoulders. It's like it might be some kind of energy that you were born with, that you don't know how to release. It's just like part of you. You always believe it's your job to fix everything. And it has created like a really big tension, I'm sure, because equally as being this selfless and having this hero, self-sacrificial energy, you have also had the energy of somebody who knows, like the foundation of you has always known and has tried to convince the world that I matter, I'm valuable, I need to take time for myself, I deserve that thing, I deserve that thing. Like self-love, but also selfless love. This is like the tug of war that you may have been experiencing in this life. But in this life, you were meant to relax like a lot more than you did in your last life. It is not your purpose or your destiny in this life to fight wars and go all over the world to wherever calls you, wherever is in need. It's going to be hard to accept that, but it seems like a big lesson of this life is that that's not your purpose anymore. Your purpose is to like build a home, continue what you started the last decade of your last life. That this is what your life is here for now, is to love yourself and be stable and rooted, and to attract people toward you, to attract things, to have what you need, luxury, comfort, to serve yourself. Like that's what you will be able to experience in this life. That's what you are meant to experience in this life. So now I think I'm going to move on to group 3. Okay, so group 3, you chose the 7 of Cups. Choices. Oh. Wisdom Keeper. That one came out with a really weird energy. Wise person, well-informed, wounded healer, enlightened. Wow. Oof. Why is it so heavy? What did you experience? What kind of issues were there? Like what? Oh, a blank card. I'll remember that. What did you experience? What kind of traumas? What kind of lessons? So your identity was like grandchild. You were deceived or betrayed in love. You had a guilty conscience. I really felt like something weird. You died of starvation or dehydration. But your lesson was prophecy and gifts. Look, when I pulled out this Wisdom Keeper card, I immediately felt a wave of like self-doubt. Like, no, that's too optimistic, or that's too high a ranking for what I was, like kind of an energy. Like riddled with self-doubt and zero faith in myself when I pulled that card, but now it makes sense. So dehydrated. Okay. In your last life, you had all of the powers and gifts one could imagine or hope for, especially as a healer and a sage. But you went your entire life not knowing that you were gifted. You were raised in a way that only nurtured a guilty conscience in you, insecurities, self-consciousness, a lack of self-awareness, like you were raised somehow in your past life to see yourself as nothing, as low, as ungifted, untalented, useless, pointless. And the irony is that you were among the most gifted healers of your era. You were wise, you were enlightened, you were connected to Source in a way that nobody else around you was. You were light years ahead of your time. So people didn't understand you at all. They didn't have the eyes to see. And then those that did feel your beauty and value and power were jealous or bitter, so they kept oppressing you with the idea that you sucked. And it took. You spent your entire life not even knowing how gifted you were. Nonetheless, you went your entire life helping each and every human and animal you ever came in contact with by accident. You didn't even mean to. You had an energy that was incredibly healing, purifying, nurturing. You had a mind that was endlessly deep and wise. You had a perspective of all people that saw them for who they were and thought they were beautiful and made them feel beautiful and strong, and so they were moving on after meeting you. You had a magic, and even you didn't know it. You spent your whole life thinking you were some kind of a piece of shit, that you deserved to be punished, that you had a guilty conscience for something you never even did wrong. Your identity was like that of a grandchild. It's like you felt like the entire world around you was like a bunch of wise elders, and you were just this tiny, reckless little thing that was trying to find its way. When the irony is that it was kind of the opposite. In a world of dumb, reckless, primitive children, you were like the ancient elder. From the time you were born, you had that energy, and you never in your life knew that about yourself. Spa. Bathhouses were popular in Roman times. They became part of daily life in Muslim societies known as hammams. Popular since ancient times, people still visit spas today. Yeah, this purple and this purple reminds me of your your crown chakra. What it is that you gave to people, what it is you were able to communicate and offer to the people around you was like the energy of like what a spa does for us today. You were able to take care of people, to nourish people, to renew their energy, to make them feel beautiful and youthful again. You were like a spa in human form, like personified. But then this energy of water, like you had so much confusion, like you drowned in the confusion of not knowing yourself. Like, ironically, you were dehydrated from having awareness. Like, if water represents enlightenment, then you, in a lot of ways, when it came to your own self, you were dehydrated. You had zero enlightenment as to who you were and what your gifts were. But you were able to pour endless geysers of enlightenment outward and onward to any passerby. What you saw in other people, you were never able to see or do for yourself. but you're ahead of your time. 10 of Pentacles, establishment. The 4 of Swords, rest. Judgment. Seven of Wands, valor. Yeah, so you were born into like an established society, like either your family at the time or just the society. It was just an established set of rules and principles and ways of looking at things. You were outcasted and you were kind of a hermit and a loner all throughout life, even when you were surrounded, and you were surrounded by crowds and crowds of people. Overcrowding is something you faced. It didn't change the fact that you felt very lonely and alone. You were able to provide and to give to people something they weren't able to do for you and you weren't able to do for yourself. You were also quite impressionable and you had a really open heart. You believed people and their negative perspectives of you. A lot of people lied to you. You were betrayed very much in your life. Your soul, like your spirit, didn't really have a chance to grow or mature or age. Everything and everyone around projected onto you like you were a child. When you had the energy of the oldest, most ancient of souls at the time. So something you might deal with in this lifetime, or that's been a common theme in your lifetime, in this one lifetime here so far, is like not being taken seriously for who you are. Being like patronized or treated like you're some kind of a child who doesn't understand and needs to like shut up and listen to their elders. Under the control of people who don't know shit and use you as a tool to make themselves feel like they know shit. This might be something that you've dealt with a lot in this lifetime. It's like a wound carried from this past lifetime here. You might deal with a lot of people projecting onto you. You might deal with a lot of confusion, like an existential crisis as to who am I and where do I belong and who am I and what is this kind of energy. But you were meant to correct everything from your past life. This is the life where you bring it back into balance now. You were meant to have your peace and you were meant to create your own path and see yourself succeed and gain a lot from that. As in emotionally, mentally, spiritually, like gain a lot of self-knowing and a strong, unstable, unmoving, unwavering, solid identity. Like that's what you're here to do in this life. That's your purpose here. As well as continue helping other people. You do have a lot of wisdom and that transfers over from lifetime to lifetime. Everything you were and you knew back then, all of your gifts that you had, prophecies and gifts, they're still with you. That's still a part of you. but you were meant to use them in a way where you helped people and were aware this time around that you were helping people and that people sincerely needed you. You didn't know that back then, but you're going to know that in this lifetime. To be known for your strengths and talents rather than judged or projected on, that's what you will experience in this life. To know your own effect on people and this life, rather than be confused or have a guilty conscience as though you're not doing enough or you're not good enough. That's left over from the past life, and this is the life where you no longer feel that way. You break that cycle. Hold your own, be strong, have a strong sense of self and identity that nobody can affect with their perception. That's what you will have in this life, to correct what you didn't have in the last life. Yep. Success. Recognition for who you are and what your gifts are. Instead of being starved or dehydrated from other people's awareness and care of you. Four of Cups, meditation. You won't be isolated anymore, but you will have a lot of alone time that is nourishing to you. You will experience what it's like to have luxury rather than to be the luxury in other people's lives. You will know in this life what it's like to have your own luxuries. And Temperance. You may have had a drinking problem in your past life. Because I saw that earlier, but I was like, probably not. So I didn't say it, but now you may have coped a lot with the heavy burdens that you had by drinking a lot in a past life. But that's not what, perhaps you've struggled with that in this life. If so, you know why. It's carried on from your past life. And back then it actually was a pretty necessary coping mechanism, because what other choice did you have, really? But in this life is when you break that pattern if you haven't already. And your reliance on other people to recognize you or shape your idea of yourself, your dependence on that is no longer. In this life, you break free from that. You know who you are no matter what the whole world wants to mirror to you about yourself. This is the lifetime where you have a much stronger, sense of self that nobody can mess with. And furthermore, this is the lifetime where you gain a lot of recognition for your gifts and the things that you do and create and help the world with, in a way that you didn't get that recognition back then. Because you were way too ahead of your time in your last life, and in this life too. You're pretty ahead of the collective and ahead of your time. But you live in an era now where the people are have the capacity to be more open-minded and understand you for who you are and believe in you and have faith in the things that you do. So while you're still very much ahead of your time, even in this lifetime, you are living in an era where you will receive a lot of actual understanding and clarity from people who believe in you and are able to witness your magic. What a well-informed, enlightened, wise person you are, with your gifts of prophecy. Okay. So I think that'll do. Thank you.